All right, good morning. This is a Tuesday, a snowy Tuesday here in Houston. This is Rise and Thrive. It is 9 a.m. ish. I'm Trisha Turner. I may have a little bit of internet issues because it's snowing, which is unlike normal stuff here in Houston. And so if you're tuning in today, it's January the 20 something, what did it say, the 21st, 2025. And it's about 22 degrees or something like that outside, and the snow's been coming down for hours. The purpose of today's podcast, though, is to bring you positivity, ways to help you improve your life, improve your business, and help you grow. Rise and Thrive is based on the 4 principles that are most important in my life, that being faith, family, finances, and fitness, pretty much in that order. And so today I am super excited to have Creston on with me because we're going to bring you guys a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and insight about the real estate market. And especially you're probably all at home right now on social media. So Creston, glad that you're here this morning in the snow.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. And I asked him before we jumped on, I'm like, I'm glad to see that you made it to the office because there's a lot of people out there that aren't even on the roads because they're shut down.
Very few.
Right, Creston?
Very, very few. Yeah. 610. Very few people going across 610 at this moment. So anyway.
And Chris is like, well, I grew up in Utah, so like I started driving at 11 in the snow. This is nothing to me. Love that. Hey, Creston, outside of me just telling everybody that you grew up in Utah, let's give everybody a little bit of backstory about where you are in the world, what you do for a living, and how long you've been doing that.
Thank you. All right. Well, it's good to be here. And yeah, my name's Creston Inderrieden. I grew up in Utah. I married my high school sweetheart, Holly, and we moved to Texas in the early 2000s to go to grad school at Texas A&M. And so from A&M, which we really didn't have any understanding of what kind of culture we were going to start participating in. And so anyway, we came to love being in Aggie land. And from there, after a few years, we moved in 2004 to Houston. And really, we moved here not knowing anybody. I mean, I knew the recruiter who hired us. And beyond that, we really didn't know anybody. And so, a lot of times in real estate now, we hear about how important our sphere is, how important our network is, and just being involved. And so really, we started from zero, right? And so even though I certainly don't look like have that immigrant story, I feel that I do in a certain aspect and that's what we love about Houston is it's such a melting pot. It's very welcoming to, anyone. And I tell people all the time, Houston is never going to win any awards for like prettiest city.
No.
But what I love about Houston is the inclusivity and it doesn't matter necessarily your pedigree. What matters is, are you honest? Are you a hard worker? And if you are, I am convinced that Houston is an amazing city to start a career in, simply because, it's not as driven by what that pedigree is and what your family name is or anything else. It's really just like you come in and you may have to start at the bottom, but you come in and you work, and I've seen it just my whole career is that hard work and that tenacity pays off. And so I never felt like I was, on the outs because I didn't grow up here. So
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I love it. So
now when you went to A&M, like when you landed here basically 20 years ago, was it real estate in your sights? Like what was that all about?
So it's so funny because, I'll say that I'm a slow learner, and in high school, I had a really close friend. So I grew up extremely poor, right? The holes in my pants, embarrassed even to have friends drop me off at my house. I would prefer to have them drop me off around the corner just because I was embarrassed about what was sitting in the driveway and, the house, et cetera. And so I grew up with some insecurities around that, truthfully. And in doing that, I had a really close friend in high school who was on the other end of the spectrum and, grew up, some would say with a silver spoon and, and it was family money that had been there for a few generations. And all of a sudden I got a glimpse of that, and they owned a title company, they owned a lender, or mortgage company, and they were doing developments. I was just like, whoa, like this is what it's like.
Yeah.
And so his dad was like, Creston, you should get your license. at that point I was really trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. And I ended up going into to college first. And then, we moved to Houston. But anyway, so at that point, that was my first glimpse of, oh, man, you don't have to just go get a 4-year degree, go work for a company. Like there's this entrepreneurial side of things.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Bill, yeah, certainly introduced me to that. But again, at that point I was 18 and did not see necessarily a career in real estate at that moment. But then from College Station, we came here, and really it was 2006. I'd been in the career for a little bit, and I have a restless energy, and truthfully, I'd been traveling, and when you're in consulting, a lot of times what will happen is you are on a job site, and then you're living and working with this team of people, Monday through Friday, and you're having to travel and airplanes and the whole shebang. Well, a lot of times what will happen is you finish your work and then you go to dinner as a team, go back to the hotel, and you have a few hours and, get up and do it all over again. But, the reality is there was a lot of drinking, and there was a lot of I would call it just kind of base, it wasn't super
Oh yeah.
or super, I didn't feel like I was necessarily getting to be a better person. And Holly and I were thinking about buying our first house. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get my real estate license. And so I just said, I'm going to stop going to dinner with the team. I'm just going to go back to the hotel, and that'll give me 3 to 4 hours a night to study. And so that's kind of what I did. And so my
Wow.
very first client, and in my head, I was like, okay, because I was on partner track. I had a really, I was very good at what I did, and
Yeah.
I was moving up the ranks. And so but at every promotion, I kept thinking, okay, this will be the promotion where I have more autonomy. This will be the promotion. This will be the promotion. And it never happened.
Yeah.
And finally, I'm friends with partners, right? And I kept saying, like, even at partner, you're still are beholden to somebody else, even at partner.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was it was my birthday, and I had been traveling around to Singapore and to Dubai. And all of a sudden I'd gotten home from Dubai, and let's say like on a Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, they say, hey, we need you back in Singapore. And I'm like, okay. And again, like at this point, we didn't have kids. I was like, okay, whatever. Well, then I started looking. They needed me there for a Monday meeting. Well, I started looking, and basically the only way to make it there was I had to travel on Saturday. Well, Saturday was my birthday. And so on that flight at like 9 a.m., well, anyone who's been over into the that part of the country or part of the world knows you chew up an entire day. And so by the time I landed in Singapore, it was Sunday, like midday. And man, my entire birthday just got spent, at 35,000 feet in the air. And so anyway, that moment I was kind of like, I don't want to spend another birthday like this, And so that kind of opened up where I was like, okay, we're going to start doing real estate. And then really, I just thought originally like, okay, if I can do one extra deal a year, then I'll be, that's kind of bonus money, and I'm doing, real money in the corporate world. And so I just thought that was going to be kind of bonus. Well, the first year I did 7 deals, and then it was like 12 deals, right? It's just part-time. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, like I'm getting close to where I'm making my salary on the side. And so then Holly and I kind of looked at each other, and she was working too. And she's like, man, one of us is going to have to leave our job. And I'm like, yeah. And so we had benefits through me. And so she left first. And then the very next year, that would have been 08, 09, I left. And anybody who can remember, that was like right in the middle of the recession. Right? It was a really crappy time.
Yeah.
And actually a funny story was the corporate or the consulting gig that I was working at, I think at that point we had like about 185 people in the office, and it was all over the world, but Houston had like 185. Well, they called everybody in. We called it Black Friday, and literally they laid off 40% of the workforce in one day. Went down.
Wow.
They were offering severance packages, the whole thing. Well, literally like about 6 weeks later, Holly and I kind of came to this conclusion, like, Creston, it's time for you to go full time too. So I go into HR, and she's a friend and a client now. And I go, Jana, I said, I need you to fire me. And she looks at me and she goes, are you crazy? Like, I can't fire you. And I go, 6 weeks ago, you just laid off 40% of the workforce. Like, help me out. And she goes, dude, if I had any idea you wanted to leave, I could have thrown you in then. She goes, you are highly visible. Everybody knows who you are. There's zero chance that you're getting fired.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, look, the time has come. I said, can you please go talk to Danny was the head partner for our region. I said, can you go talk? And I was friends with him too, fortunately. And I said, hey, will you go talk to Danny and see what you can come up with? She comes back to me and she goes, man, you're an idiot, but we'll give you sabbatical for, I don't remember, 6 weeks or something like this. And then if you just don't come back, you don't come back. So anyway,
Cool.
they helped me out a bit, and they gave me sabbatical. And so then I just never came back. Right. So
they were probably thinking you wouldn't make it and you'd need to come back,
well, it was funny because as soon as it got announced, all of the partners were like, we need to take you to lunch. We need to take you to dinner. We need to, like, what are you doing? Do you not understand? It's, like the world is falling apart. And in that, those moments, so my father-in-law is a very, very wise man, has been very successful, but he's very visionary. And I called him and I said, Brent, I said, I really thought I had this figured out. I said, but I'm second guessing myself. And I said, I need a sanity check here. And so, I kind of walk him through it, and he gave me some very good advice. And he said, Creston, he said, it's very important to remember. He said, recessions are great at weeding out the weak. Recessions are great at weeding out the weak. And he said, I've seen your work ethic, because I worked for him on the ranch and I worked for him at the law firm before we moved to Texas. And he said, I've seen your work ethic. He goes, you're not going to fail because of your work ethic. He said, get in there. He said, what you're going to do is, and you're just going to claw on. And he's like, that's really all you're doing. You're going to get in, hold on. And when the recession turns, he said, you got to remember, he said, economies are always turning. Yeah. And he said, this is going to change. He said, it may feel really bleak right now. He goes, it's going to change. And when it does, he goes, you were able to hold on, and then you'll gain market share as soon as the market shifts. And that proved to be very, very good advice, because we just got in and we did a handful of deals. We weren't getting rich in 2009. But 2010, 11, 12, man, we made some really, really good money. And then, we were able to grow pretty much every year, or at least hold steady since then. So, it's been really good.
So Holly was the first one then?
Full time, yeah. I got licensed first in 2006. She did it 2007, 2008, she leaves, and then 2009, I left.
So when she left, where did she go? Like, did you guys join a brokerage, a big brokerage?
Yeah, it was just Realty Associates is what it was called. It was just like, Pete. Yeah, and so anyway, we did that, and so
Realty Associates isn't notorious for their training.
No, and so actually that then here you go. So this is a good story, because basically, I started doing business with Pete. Ended up becoming, he had one commercial guy, I think, that did a little more volume than us, but basically I was like his number one agent out of, I forget, 2,000 agents or something. Oh,
for sure.
And anyway, so I was doing a lot of business for him. And then we had grown to where, I had some staff, and we were literally like, hey, like to his transaction coordinator, his compliance department, we're like, hey, you guys are doing this wrong. Here's how to do this. And so we're literally training, right? And I was just like, and so I went to him and I was like, hey, man, I was like, I know you're only charging me X per deal because it was a flat fee deal. I go, but, I forget what the number was. And this is like, this would have been like 2011, 12, something like that, probably 12. And I go, bro, I paid you like 45 grand, and he goes, well, I'm only charging you $400 or $300. I go, I know, but it adds up when, and I said, and look, I'm literally training your people, like help me out. And so I wanted a cap.
Yeah.
And at first he agreed, and then he didn't. And no, that's no, reflection on him. It was just, he just changed his mind. Yep. And I was really upset. I called Holly. I go, man, I went and I met with him. He said he was going to do this. He didn't do it. I'm really mad. And literally Holly, instead of like feeding my anger, she goes, that's the best thing that ever could have happened to you. And I'm still mad. And I go, what are you talking about? No, this is not cool. He said this, that. And Holly goes, Creston, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go get your brokerage license. We're going to start our own brokerage. She goes, and everything's going to be fine. And then all of a sudden I go, and so that's why we've been married 26 years. And therein lies, that intimacy that comes, when you've been married for a while.
Yeah.
And she goes, You got nothing to worry about. She goes, this is the best thing that ever could happen to you. And I was like, okay. And I just had
Uh,
to let it go.
yeah.
So anyway, so that's what happened. I got,
So
went
you
and got my
literally
broker's license.
went from Realty Associates to opening your own brokerage?
Yeah.
That's insane. Like most people don't follow that path. Most
No.
people go to like Williams or one of the big box ones that does have training.
Yep.
Then they end up at a discount one because they want more money. And then they're like, no, this is a
Yeah.
crap show. I need to do my own thing. So
It's
you did
true.
it in
It's
a
true.
crazy way.
Yeah, and again, like coming out of the corporate world, I think that's one of the main differences that I see is like the professionalism. And so there's an incredible lack, and this is
Oh,
no
yeah.
dig on anybody, but there's an incredible lack of professionalism in our
Yep.
industry. And quite frankly, I think from the Justice Department to these greedy attorneys to et cetera have kind of latched onto that
Yeah.
and have made a mess of things, quite frankly. But the reality is by coming out of the corporate world, because I've had people go, well, you're in real estate, you didn't even need a license, or excuse me, you don't even need a 4-year degree to do that, which is true. I said, but the reality is who I became and what I learned in school,
Yep.
certainly has given me a network, right?
Yeah.
There's Aggies all over the place. But then in addition, it did, kind of form me and mold me into who I am. And so, while I don't need it, that's true, but my professionalism is a step above. And I do think that that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
and one of the ways in which we're able to gain market share is simply by just, doing things that other people don't
Oh, for sure.
and doing it in a cleaner fashion, maybe.
So in the beginning, when you guys were first selling real estate, and of course Holly was doing it full time before you, and then once you guys got going, was it kind of like a husband and wife team? Is that what you had formed?
So here's what's funny. Kind of.
Okay.
Because so, again, Holly started doing it full time. So she was in the business, right? She was
Yeah.
working clients, she was, making calls, all that. Well, then I joined, and so we started doing the same thing. And so we really ended up as Holly's got her clients she's servicing, I've got my clients I'm servicing. We're just kind of doing our thing.
Okay.
Well, then all of a sudden, our oldest Josh came into the picture, and so we would have like our full-time gig, and then we'd have to take care of Josh, get him down,
Yep.
and then we'd work at night.
Yep.
Well, then it became too much to where it was like it became competing,
Oh
where
yeah.
I would, hurrying schedule something. You know how it is. You got
Yep.
to be kind of be willing to go on the fly. And so I would be, oh, the Smiths want to see that at 6:30, and so I'd hurry and schedule it. Well, then Holly's like, dude, I had an appointment at 6.
Yep.
What are we gonna do with Josh? And I'm like, I don't know, but I got clients that need to see this, da, da, da. And she was like, hey, your clients aren't more important than mine, right? And I'm like, that's true. And so what we came up with real fast was, you know what? Holly can be a better, like we can essentially accomplish more if we take Holly out of production.
Yep.
She handles like the marketing. She helps me schedule appointments. She does, like essentially
Oh
helps
yeah.
me from the backside.
Yep.
And then I just handle all clients. And
Yep.
so we started doing that really probably about, 16, 17 years ago. And then, so Holly kind of runs all the back office. She
Oh
does the
yeah.
accounting, she does the finance. And then if I just need something, hey, I need to hurry and get this appointment
Right.
scheduled or whatever. Again, we have a team of admins now that do that, but Holly will jump in and with that as well. But if Holly's friends call, hey, we want to, sell the house or whatever, she doesn't do any of them. She
Yeah.
literally just says, okay, great. Creston will call you and here we go. And, every once in a while she'll come on a meeting with me, but for the most part, she just hands everything to me. And that worked really well in our marriage and with our family, just so that we weren't competing. And
For sure.
so, yeah.
And you can raise your kids and somebody is with them at all times.
Yeah.
And you're running, in my opinion, like the most profitable business because it's your family. It's like
Yeah.
coming home to
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
which is super cool.
One
So
thing
then
that,
when you
okay, no,
go ahead.
I'll just share one thing that just got reminded of me, and I think is maybe valuable to those that are listening is simply I used to so the word presence comes to my mind. And I used to, when the kids, especially when the kids were younger, I would tell Holly, okay, I'll be home at 6:30. Well, I would be running late, right? 6:30. Oh man. So I would be like making calls, in the car, and I would pull into the driveway on a call. And oftentimes the kids would come on the sides of the car, and I'd be like, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
then they would go in a little bit dejected. And so Holly told me, she goes, Creston, just text me, hey, I'm running late. I'll be in by 6:40 or 6:50 or 7 o'clock or whatever. But she goes, don't pull into that driveway. She said, you are literally like killing those kids
Mm,
when you pull up and you're like, "1 minute,
wow.
1 minute." And so she goes, I would much rather, and they would much rather have you just be later, be
Yep.
out on the street, just let me know. And she said, and then when you pull in, you're present, you're
I
there,
love
and you're, ready to go. And that was really transformative. And I don't do it perfectly, but that was transformative in just being there for the kids. Because
Yeah,
I don't think you necessarily have to be there all day, every day for your kids.
right.
But when you are there, if it's really intentional, if it's really on point, and if it's really just like intimate,
Yeah.
then those moments are so much, better.
Yes.
And anyway, so that was some advice that Holly gave me, and I was like, you know what, that's really good. Essentially, it would be better to be 10 minutes late than to sit in where they know you're there and I want you, but you don't
Yes.
get me for another 10 minutes.
I
So
love that you said that because I can totally relate to
yeah,
pulling into my garage many times on a call, and I go in the house on the call, and I'm walking into a house where there's kids this
yeah,
loud, and I'm telling them to be quiet. That I
exactly.
just entered there on a call, like that was foolish of me.
Yeah,
Yeah, so many times I've done that, and I
yeah,
love that advice. I think that's people need to like take that one in, whether you're in any business, like being present, stopping for a minute and finishing your call before
true.
you enter your family. I love that. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah.
When you guys did this jump from Realty Associates and then into your own brokerage, which was that Indy Quest Properties?
Mhm.
Okay, so what year was that?
Oh, yeah, that would have been, I think it was 2012.
Okay,
Yeah, 2012.
long time ago.
Yeah. Mhm.
So was it just you and Holly, or had you guys taken some
So
agents?
yeah, at that point we had like an assistant. In fact,
Okay.
our very first assistant was literally a part-time assistant. We had met her at a Bible study, and we found out that she was doing real estate, and that she was doing like a decent bit of leases, and my business was kind of growing, and all of a sudden I'm
Yeah.
getting these leases. I'm like, and so she wasn't even at our brokerage. She literally started working for me, and she was still at this other brokerage. She ended up joining us, years or maybe a year into it or something.
Which is
But
crazy.
yeah, it was so funny. And so yeah, it started with me just giving her these lease leads because I was kind of like, hey, I just need help get, like
Yeah,
I come from a very service oriented framework and mindset. And so even though there was no real money in it, I needed those people to be served.
for
Right.
sure.
And if I couldn't find somebody, then it was me.
Yeah,
But I knew that my time was valuable enough that it shouldn't be me. And so I was like, I need to serve these people. And Christy enjoyed doing Lisa. I was like, here, 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 here. And I was just
for
giving her to
sure.
him. I wasn't making anything because she wasn't even at my brokerage.
No.
And then she came on as like a part-time admin and then a full-time admin. And we started going from there. So yeah, when we left Realty Associates, we ended up having, probably like 2 or 3 people.
Okay.
One is like an agent and then, admins.
So when your vision was to create your own brokerage, and Holly's like, you're just going to get your broker's license, it was because you couldn't get a cap at Realty Associates, right?
Essentially. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
It was literally, I was just like, man,
right.
if there's, and it's the same thing in the world. That's like, there's value. If,
Yes,
if you feel like, hey, I'm getting good
right.
value, then you're willing to spend the money. Right.
For sure.
But if you feel like, man, I'm paying a lot, and what did you give me? Then that's where you start to grow kind of agitated and like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to look at what else is out there. And that's essentially what happened. And so, we had been being recruited by the other ones.
Yeah.
But at that point, we just felt like, we could just start our own thing. And it wasn't a need or a desire that I needed more leads. It was simply a matter of I just needed a way to do business because
For
I could
sure.
generate my leads. That wasn't the issue. It was always just a matter of, okay, how can I do this? And we decided to start our own brokerage.
So in your mind, then when you were opening your own brokerage, did you have a vision of what you wanted it to look like? We're going to have this many agents, and we're going to have teams and caps and
So
all that.
no, it was so funny because like when we started, so I joke, if I ever started or excuse me, if I ever wrote a book, it would be called The Accidental Entrepreneur because I wasn't planning on it at all.
Love that.
And so it was just kind of like one of these things. It was like, all of a sudden a client would be like, hey, I want to get into real estate. And I'd be like, sweet. Here's how I lay it out, and here's our splits. And literally every single agent was on the exact same split,
Okay.
the exact same deal. It wasn't, I didn't necessarily play favorites with anybody and, oh, well, you want to come on a flat fee? Okay, yeah, we could do it this way. And you want to do it this
Yeah.
way? It was just literally like, here it is. If you want to come on, come on. And so, but I didn't do any recruiting. It was just literally 100% was, like one of my top agents. And she was first introduced to us because my admin was expecting a baby, and it was like her best friend. She goes, "Hey, my best friend wants to get into real estate, and I'm about to have this baby. Like, do you guys want to talk to her?" Like, yeah. And then all of
Sure.
a sudden that led to, Michelle
Yes.
coming into our life and da da da.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just kind of fun how it all played out. So yeah, it was, for like people of faith, a lot of times the advocate in front of the other
Yeah.
and just like listen to your heart and follow that. And so that's really what we did. It was just like, what's the next right step to take? And
Yeah.
we just would take that and, okay, well, now what's the next step? Okay. And we take that. And so, and fortunately we grew. I mean, at one point we were up over 25 agents. Recently we just joined with Realty of America, and we brought over 20 agents. And so, but yeah, we had a very, very good culture, very family oriented. And so, we basically, again, we're looking at how can we add value.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in that my production is, on the higher side for most people. And so
Yep.
I've been able to ride that bike a lot,
Oh
and
yeah.
that wheel just spins and spins and spins. So I
Yeah.
have quite a bit of experience, and, have been, featured in quite a few different, publications and different things. And so I think because of some of that, people are just naturally attracted to
For
that. And
sure.
so, the adage that success begets success, I
Yeah.
think is very true. And so, thoroughbreds like to be around other thoroughbreds. And so I
For
think we,
sure.
we, we attracted good quality people that had similar values to what we had.
Well, Creston, you had like a long stint there of running and being part of an independent brokerage. And again, and I say this like with no disrespect towards anyone paying attention and listening, but most independent brokerages are run by a broker that doesn't sell a lot of homes and doesn't really even know how to do that. They get their broker's license and they sit back a lot and they just try to take the caps and the fees and all of that, and they don't really bring any value. You, on the other hand,
Yeah.
Creston, like you were in the trenches. Like if anything, people were coming along on your coattails and learning from your knowledge and wisdom. How in the world did you maintain such a rigorous schedule like that? 12 years of running your own brokerage is a lot, and
Yeah.
still like have the passion like you do.
Yeah. So I will say that this last 6 months, certainly my enthusiasm and passion has certainly been reignited. So I am certainly on fire right now for the industry, and I have always loved it, but right now I've been very, very rejuvenated. Um, but I think when you have like a service oriented mindset, then every day is a gift, and every
Yeah.
day is an opportunity to get better. And so a thought that runs through my mind a lot is, help me make today better than yesterday so that
Mhm.
tomorrow can be better than today. Right. And it's literally, again, it's just, it doesn't have to be anything like radical, but it's just like, okay, what can I do today? Like you referenced already. Well, today's a snow day. Okay,
Yep.
well, there's plenty of people who are just sitting home and letting, and literally at their windows like snow.
They
Which
are.
again, it's cool, right? But
Yeah.
on the same token, how many people could you reach today if you really wanted to? I guarantee you today you could set a new record. Like today, somebody's going to set a new record
Yep.
simply because there's so many people home, so many people. Like if you want to engage with people, all you got to do is like, I mean, lift a finger and
Yeah.
you would connect with people, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Do you think there's
So
people wishing they had a fireplace right now and they might want to think about moving?
yes, right. So, there's all sorts of opportunities. And so, yeah, I think it just kind of, again, comes down to having like a service mindset of what's the next right thing I can do, and being able to, 'cause- so the reality is I do work longer than, average. Right. So
Yeah.
I've had plenty of people go, wow, I want kind of what you have. And I'm like, you didn't see what I did the last, 12 years to get to where we're at.
Sure.
And so, I think a lot of times they see the public side that looks fun and, amazing, but then in reality, it's like, are they willing to put in that time and energy, and honestly, that's what I love about this business, because I can literally share everything, and like a tiny, tiny fraction will ever do anything with it. And so like I can be friends with all sorts of people. When I first got into business, I actually had like a kind of a sharper elbow approach of like, whoa, 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 I'm going to squeeze
Yeah.
every penny,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of a sudden I realized, I was like, wait a minute, if I do that, then the very people that I need to be allies at some point, I'm going to end up making enemies,
For sure.
And so all of a sudden my mindset changed probably like about a year into the business. It totally changed. And so where I was like, oh man, if I'm going to be doing business with you repeatedly, I should treat you with kindness. I can still represent the seller or represent the buyer to the utmost, but I should be kind to you. I should treat you, with the respect that you deserve. And so consequently, I have, I think, a very good reputation
Yeah.
in Houston in particular, just because, like I don't need to get upset with you. I don't have to yell at you. And
Yeah.
even if the deal's going south, I don't have to put a target on you.
Yeah.
Right. And it could just be your client being an idiot, I don't know. So anyway.
You touched on something there where people look at you and they're like, they want your life, and they, a lot of people covet that kind of stuff. And like you said, they don't see what you've done the last 12 years. During that 12-year era of running your independent brokerage, there were a lot that have popped up, a lot that have went away. We've seen a lot of the big box companies get even bigger. At any part of that 12 years, did it get like so overwhelming, so stressed out where you're like, what was I thinking of? Maybe I just need to go join a KW or do a Remax and dissolve this.
So seriously, no. So I'm someone who, like, the word stress doesn't really cross my mind, and it doesn't really
Nice.
cross my lips.
You're lucky.
Well, I guess mainly just because, like, I love Tony Robbins, I love Jim Rohn, and some of
Yeah.
those mindset masters. And so, the reality is, I think what you focus on grows, and where I put my energy, that's what's going to grow. And if I literally tune into, the worst of what could happen, then my mindset is going to be impacted, right?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I still remember this. I won't go into who the president was, but I remember there was a president got elected, and it wasn't somebody who I was real thrilled about. And I remember being like so bummed, like, oh, it's going to be the worst. It's going to be the worst, right? Because I
Yeah.
was buying into this narrative that you read in the media.
Sure.
Well, I ended up having my best year ever. And then all of a sudden I was like, so there's a great quote. I think it's from Zig, and he says, it's the set of your sails, not the direction of the wind, that will determine your destiny. So it's the set of your sails, not the direction of the wind. And I started just really like living that, to where I was like, you know what? Like last year, 24, I didn't have my best year ever, but it was in the top 3 out of,
Nice.
since I've been licensed. Last year, 2024, was in my top 3.
Wow.
I think I had 22, I think, was my best year ever.
Yeah.
And then, but 24 was a super solid year. And
Very
yet
cool.
you talk to a bunch of agents and they go, man, 24 was terrible. I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything, da, 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 da. And I'm like, huh, well, that's interesting. Right.
Yes.
What were you focused on? What were you
Yeah.
doing? What were the actions? What were the habits? And, oftentimes I think you look at that and then suddenly you go, oh, yeah, I did spend an awful lot of time reading the news. I did spend an awful lot of time worrying about things that I can't control.
Yeah.
And so focus on what you can control, and what you can control are your actions, your reactions, right? And your habits. So focus on
So
that,
when
and
you
the rest
look
of it will
at
take care of
that
itself.
like 12-year run that you've had, and you're still working today, you're just in a different facet. Would you say that your schedule largely was in part of your huge success? And what, if anything, have you changed during that time running the brokerage and doing the production that you do?
Yeah. So I will be honest with you. I am not great at time blocking.
Okay.
If any coaches are out there, now I am great at, I am in the office. Like
Yeah.
first thing I'm so the time part of it, I will kick
You're
most
in.
people's rear end on. But the actual, what ends up truly happening a lot of times is life just starts hitting me.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough that my database is quite large at this point, and so I really don't have to make outgoing calls.
Right.
Business just comes to me, right? And so, and then I service that and kind of go from there. So if there was one thing that I could get better at, it would be time blocking. And so I do some time blocking, but not nearly to the degree that a lot of people do. So I am not good at that, and I'm not a good example. Um,
which is
But
crazy as long as you've been doing this.
yeah, yeah, and again, I do try to. So like we have certain meetings, but then again, if like a client calls, I'm like, but I'm on it. And so
Okay.
then all of a sudden, like Holly and the team will be like, dude, we had a client list meeting at 9. I'm like, I know, and I was on a client call until 9:15. So now we'll do the client list meeting, whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
they're paying the bills. And this is just accounting for like kind of keeping current on where we're at. And if a deal calls, I'm generally
I'm
going to take
going.
it if I can.
I love
So
that.
anyway, we may edit that out, but there you go. So
No. No, when you look at then, okay, so now you guys, and he switched over to Realty of America, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in your independent brokerage model, because things have changed dramatically
a
in
lot.
12 years, and the industry is really getting like crazily different every
Yeah.
year, especially since COVID. What were you thinking? Was it okay? I'm going to keep this brokerage open until I die, and then my kids are going to run it. Did you have a long range plan for your
Yeah,
brokerage?
so our son does have interest in real estate. He just turned 18
Okay.
last week or 2 weeks ago now, and so he's getting his license. He should have his license maybe in a week or so.
Okay.
So he does have interest, but he's going to A&M in the business school. So like we
Sure.
kind of were like, hey, no, you're going to go to school and then you can evaluate things. Um, so he does have some interest, but I purposely didn't ever want my kids to feel like they needed or, had to do something. I wanted them to find who they are and pursue their own dreams and passions and stuff like that. So, yeah, my vision was really just like to run this as long as we felt like we wanted to and needed to. And then we've been approached by the big different companies to
Yeah.
either for acquisition or to join forces, whatever. And so, but at each turn, every time we got approached, I would look through it kind of through three lenses. So the one lens was like for me and Holly, is this going to be like financially? Do I feel like I'm being fairly compensated for what I'm, giving up?
Yeah.
That was one. Two was, is this going to be beneficial for my agents?
Okay.
Because to me, if I give you a handshake and I just tell you, hey, this is what we're going to do, like I'm going to do it, even if it's going to cost me money, even if it's going to cost me lost sleep, even if it's going to cost me whatever. I'm going to do it simply because I told you I'm going to. I don't
Correct.
care like what's in the contract. I care that I gave you my word.
Yep.
And so that means more to me than just about anything. And so anytime another suitor or broker would come, asking us, I ran it through that lens of, okay, well, I told my agents they would be on this split with, these
Okay.
parameters.
Yeah.
Can that continue in this new brokerage?
Okay.
And then the last one was just, do I feel like this is a big enough opportunity that it's worth,
Oh yeah.
the changes, because there are costs and changes,
Yeah.
that all enacts. And so I kind of looked at it from those three things, and literally at every single turn, almost every one, yes, Holly and I were going to get, money. So like, that's cool, whatever.
Yep.
But at almost every single step, I couldn't look my agents in the eye and say, well, this and this is better, but your split's going to change, or your split's going to stay the same, but now you got more fees, or now you're going to have to pay a desk fee or whatever. Right. And
Yeah.
and so I was never at the point where I was like, I was ready to do anything because I couldn't look my agents in the eye and say, this is going to be good for you until, I sat down with Mark and Eddie, I guess, and talked through it. And I was like, this is the first time where Holly and I are going to be compensated. We're going to be able to do better for our agents, and we're able to give the agents more. And so the opportunity becomes bigger for everybody, and I can help everybody grow. And
Yeah.
so that was really why we did that, was simply because it was like that became the next logical step, and it satisfied each of those three kind of parameters or three
Yeah.
different views. And so that was really the main reason and the main driver.
And for you being in business as long as you were, and of course you went through the NAR settlement and all that, did the NAR settlement play any role in that at all?
Well,
The
so
decision?
yeah, there's a couple of things there. One is, because there's a new company formed after the settlement, it certainly makes it a whole lot harder to ever have to worry about your company being thrown into the settlement,
Yeah.
right? Because you didn't even exist.
Right.
So that part was certainly an advantage. And then, yeah, I mean, as an independent broker, especially where we were with only 20 agents, like I was always the number one producer, kind of
Yep.
between 25 and 30 3 million a year or something.
Yep. Which is a great
And
living.
and then it would be step down, step down, step down, right? Well, if I lost even just one of my top, 3 or 4 agents, all of a sudden people start going, whoa, well, hold on, why is she gone and where did she go? And then,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and so then you start having this. And again, I wasn't like a recruiter. And so all the people that had come in organically because
Yeah.
I had done a deal with them, because their sister had told them about them or whatever. And so it's just one of those things where it was like, man, if I start losing people to this type of a model, I might as well like get ahead of the game, be
Yes.
first in, so I don't lose people. I can get the equity, and it's good for them. So now, right, instead of me just kind of holding on, well, now all
Uh-huh.
of a sudden I'm able to not just hold on, but I'm able to grow.
Oh, yeah.
And so, already like our ROA organization is, a couple of times bigger than what I even had, even just the agents that I brought over.
Yeah.
And so, it's a compelling kind of business argument for independent brokers. You have to have lived conservatively, in my opinion, because you're giving up that revenue and you're getting equity in exchange for the revenue. And then you build, the rev share organization. But that rev share organization takes time to build versus, what you've already have at your brokerage.
Yes.
And so as a result of that, people, especially, I think a lot of independent brokers are just kind of holding on.
I do too.
But those who are just holding on, they have to have some legs under them, some cash, in order to make that transition, right? And so, or it's just going to be a painful transition.
Yeah.
But the reality is that transition is going to happen one way or the other, in my opinion.
I
And
agree.
so I think it's important for brokers and for agents. But, again, don't live above your means. Don't live like right here, right? You need to have plenty of breathing room. And so when Holly and I, fortunately, really, Holly's the one who's super conservative. Literally, if you said, Creston, how much money is in your bank account right now? I genuinely have no idea.
Yep.
I just know that Holly handles it, and I trust her implicitly, and she does a great job on it.
Which
And
is
so,
awesome.
yeah, because in fact, a quick little sidebar for you. We grew up in like Christian households that paid tithing. Well, years ago, as we were getting going, this is probably like 14, 15, yeah, 14, 15, somewhere in there. It was embarrassing. We were doing our taxes for that year, and we had given, it was less than $1,000. It was in the hundreds is all that we had given.
Wow.
And Holly just, I mean, we were embarrassed, right? We were just like,
Yeah.
what in the world? And so Holly, again, with her leadership, she says, Creston, we've got to get back to being, tithers. And I was like,
Yes, for sure.
we do. And so literally her word that year was first fruits. And so she's like, as soon as it comes in, at least 10% is gone.
Yeah.
And so and that became just a natural habit and rhythm in our lives. And so now, and so we've been, essentially like full tithers for, call it 12 years.
Yeah.
And you can literally, if you looked at my production, as soon as we did that, it took a jump up and then just kind of has kept growing. And so a lot of in that realm, they talk about like the love of money. And so what I started
Yes.
realizing, I was focusing too much on that, and it wasn't my heart. My heart wasn't, oh, I gotta, pay attention. And so I had a mentor, and he said, Creston, the sooner you'll stop focusing on the dollar, the sooner you'll be able to stop focusing on the dollar. And so
I
really what I
love
did
that.
was I basically told Holly, I said, I trust you. You take care of it. And you just literally, I was like, I don't want a budget, give me
Yes,
all the things. I said, you just tell me what you need and I will make it happen.
I love
And
that.
so she'd be like, hey, we need 30. I'm like, I got you.
Got
Right.
it.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
I need 50. Okay. I got you. Boom,
Got
boom,
it.
boom, boom, boom. Right. And so
Yeah.
I would just be like the little worker dog.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and so anyway, so that's really how we operate and again, I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. It works
I
for
love
us.
that you do that.
Yeah, it works
Well,
for us.
like
And
a little
so,
side
yeah,
note
but
there.
I'm convinced that generosity component has absolutely like helped us. And, I mean, we give to the church, we give to the
Yes.
ball fields, we give to the schools. We do a lot of different kind of spreading that around. And, and I just think that that's really been influential in helping us, not be tied to things. And then because I think that generosity, honestly, we don't live extravagantly. We have
Yeah.
nice things, but so making this transition was like, okay, we have an amount of cash that we can kind of start to work
Right.
through as we make that transition.
I think too, when you look at, like, you had an amazing 2024, but again, most independent brokers are not selling houses. And when you look at the model and you look at their agent count, most of their agents, 70% of the agents didn't sell one single home in 2024.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you know the model, the independent broker model, how do you think some of these brokers are holding on? Because they've got to be financially struggling.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And so, they talk about like the emperor has no clothes. I
Yeah.
think that there is certainly some of that happening. And so, and again, I think that's where I've been so excited, like working with Chad Smith, helping to put together like kind of the training and learning modules. Is I think it's going to radically change and give people tools. So as we grow, as we help our agents be more productive, like there's a good visual that I try to keep in my mind, and that is of a ship going down a river, let's say, and you can either leave a very small wake where anybody barely even knows that you went by, or you can leave a big wake, right? And so I think that is when people come to me specifically, I want them to leave better than I found them. And
Yeah.
so if I can help them in their business, if I can help them in their relationship, if I can just help them be just a little more polished, just a little more friendly, a little more inquisitive, whatever, then again, like I've helped get them a little further down the road. And so that's always been kind of my goal with being a broker owner, with being a friend, being a spouse,
Yeah.
being a dad, is just trying to help make sure that with each interaction, because none of us know when our last day here is going to be, is the
Yeah.
fact. And so what I try to do is just make each day, each interaction a 10, right? Make
Yeah.
it one where if that was your last interaction with them, it's not a sour interaction. It's not, anything where people are like, oh, hey, that guy was sure upset or something. But just try to make each interaction, and you should do that with like complete strangers. It's actually a
I
really
love
good
that.
exercise. Is just complete strangers. See if you can change their state, and just see if you can impact them and put a smile on their face.
Yeah.
And so, and you can do that in all sorts of different ways just by being
That is so
inquisitive.
cool that you said that. Okay, so you guys that are paying attention, y'all are probably like, "What is Realty of America?" Because I know I want to be like aware of all y'all's time. In the clock. So I also had an independent brokerage, and then I did not do what Creston did. I couldn't maintain that for 12 years. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what in the world was I thinking?" So I didn't last long in it. I was introduced to EXP, which is the cloud-based model, years ago. Stayed there for a little over 5 years, and then was with Real for a year before moving to Realty of America, which is where I met Creston. Creston, you also were introduced, I'm certain, to EXP and to the cloud based world, and you opted to not go that way, but to maintain your brokerage. Then, when you learned of Realty of America, which just launched September of 2024, what made you, after 12 years of owning your own, be like, this is the one?
Well, okay, so there's a couple things there. One, the and let me just preface for anybody that's listening. There's lots of different good companies out there, and you got to find kind of what works for you, and
Yeah.
surround yourself with people that will lift you up, hopefully, and motivate you, inspire you, etc. And so each time I was approached by these different brokerages, it was never from somebody who was A, like doing more business than I was, and B, even like their kind of sponsors, like that organization. I never really felt like incredibly propelled to even want to do something, right? Because again, I said earlier, like thoroughbreds want to hang around other thoroughbreds.
Yes.
And honestly, I was just kind of like, not that I think I'm all that,
I get it.
but
Yeah.
again, like if I'm selling 30 million a year and someone's doing a million a year and they're like, hey, you really need to come over here. I really question, like,
For sure.
sure, okay, like, are you going to help me sell $1 million? Like, I don't know what
Yeah,
what are you going to help me do?
for
And
sure.
so, and that's genuinely, again, not trying to be a jerk, but I was just like, man,
True.
I need to, if I'm going to go somewhere, like, show me, I'm open,
Yeah.
but just
Right.
kind of tell me what is it? And so anyway, I never really had that aha of, oh my gosh, this could be huge. So anyway, so yeah, so that was never a huge reason. But same thing, Mark Demas, who's one of the co-founders of Realty of America, and I have been really dear friends for about 15 years. He was in my office yesterday, and we spent quite a bit of time together. And so but it wasn't all business, right? We dined together, travel, like we have a friendship. It's been a genuine friendship for 15 years. And so when he came to me and said, Creston, I've been working on this, I really want you and Holly involved. And we've talked, I mean, for years we had talked about, we should start a title company, we should start, mortgage, arm, blah 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 blah, and we just never did it, right? Because we just got business chasing our own stuff. Well, anyway, but we always just would encourage each other and help each other. And he'd have a problem, I'd send a, Trisha, are you still there? We'll see. Anyway, and so because of the relationship, because of the proximity of the relationship, is really what ended up being incredibly valuable, quite frankly, was just because of the proximity. It didn't feel like I was being recruited. It genuinely felt like I was having a seat at the table, and I saw the opportunity for what it could be. And that was simply an incredible opportunity to grow beyond just our little sandbox of Indy Quest Properties, and to be able to really grow and propel to, help grow a national brokerage. And so when we had the opportunity to be kind of first in, that was incredibly powerful. So anyway, all right, Trisha just texted me. I'm so sorry. But she said she's trying to get back in. Her internet just died. So it still says this is live, so hopefully it's still recording and she can edit as we see fit. But anyway, so yeah, so I think the reality is because of my proximity to Mark, the relationship with Mark, that was a big motivator, because it didn't come from a place of he needed me. It came from a place of one of mutual respect and growth, and that we were both going to kind of help each other grow and take our businesses to the next level. And so that's exactly what we're attempting to do.
Creston.
There you go.
Oh gosh, totally lost internet. Oh, I have a different visual background on this thing too. That's our former one. Let me change
It's all
that.
good. It's all good.
That's so crazy. Wow.
It's
Totally
like,
lost my
I finished my thought, and then I was like, and I'm going to just hang out for a minute.
Okay. Wow. Did not see that one coming.
It's
Okay.
all good. All good.
Okay, well, I guess you continued on, and I'm so glad about that. Thank you guys for like tuning in, y'all. This is like live. The snow like took our internet down, and so thankfully I got back on for a minute. Creston, did you fill everybody in on everything?
I think so. I basically just kind of shared the reason was because of Mark, and I think that because of the proximity, because of the relationship, is why we seriously looked at it, right? Because
Yeah.
he's someone who I've been friends with and masterminded with for years and years, and he's someone who has propelled me, who's helped me grow, and so into where we're at. And so I was like, well, if I can continue that, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to go to the moon like I think it's going to, in which case I get a front row seat to that,
Mhm.
or it doesn't work, in which case I go right back to being Indy Quest Properties and I pick right back up and, I march on down my merry road. So, the reality is that, what banner I fly, people are going to come to me. And, based on the way I treat them, based on the good business that I've done for, 15 years, people are going to continue to come to me. And I mean, we've been keeping track of it, I think, for the last 9 years, but literally my referral rate and past clients and referrals, it's over 85% of our business every single year.
That is
And
so
so,
good.
and again, it's just, I'm going to treat you like my sister. I'm going to
Yeah.
treat your mom like my mom. I'm going to treat, the complete stranger like whatever I need to treat them like in order
Yeah.
for them to feel loved and appreciated and cared about. And, like, you're dealing with an expert, and I'm going to be able to deliver that in a very compassionate and, supportive way. And so my approach doesn't work for everybody, but guess what? There's millions of people in this city,
Yeah.
and all I need it to work for is enough. And so anyway, that was just kind of one of those things where I'm like, I don't have to, a lot of people do tons on social media, and I'll get on there, but honestly, the half the stuff that gets put on there is like my admin just going, hey, we need this. I'm like, okay, you tell me what you need and we'll do it.
Yeah.
So,
but it works for you, and I think the moral of the story is, and so I'm glad, like God works in mysterious ways. He booted me off the thing, and I was like, well, you're still going, thank
I'm
heavens.
just going to talk
And
for a
the
little bit
funniest
longer.
thing is, you can't shut it off because it's on my account. So you were like just forced to be on, which I
That's right.
love.
It's
So
all
I'm
good.
glad you got to share.
It's
Thank you
all
for
good.
doing that. Creston, there's probably a ton of independent brokers out there, team leaders, like are wondering, or they're probably holding on like you
Yeah.
were when you first started, and now you've been hugely successful, and now you're on another endeavor with Realty of America where you're growing by leaps and bounds. So how can people get a hold of you to learn more?
Yeah. So, on Instagram is just Creston_Inderrieden. And, but I mean, literally, if you just type in Creston Realtor in Houston, you're going to find me. So,
For sure.
not super hard. And, I think the focus, I think, for agents in particular is you've got to look at what ship are you a part of? And where is that taking you? I met with a couple of agents yesterday from a big luxury brokerage, and they're getting towards the end of their career, and they were like, I don't know, like everything that we just talked about is really compelling, but we've only got another 5 years before retirement. And I just said, well, that's 5 years further down the road you're going to get on this.
For
Then the current
sure.
brokerage doesn't have a cap, has a higher split, and doesn't have any equity or any rev share. So, if you're going to spend 5 years there or 5 years with us, are you going to build it, your rev share to where, it's hundreds of thousands a month? Probably not. But if you build it to even $10,000 a month, that's 10 grand or more a month than what you have.
For sure.
And you're getting equity, which you don't get any right now. And you're able to do your business in a lower cost, structure. So like win, 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 like, I don't know why you wouldn't, it's kind of your
Same.
choice. And so they were like, man, because she was like, well, I don't know, it's only going to be another 5 years. I'm like, well, You
That's
choose
a
where you're going to be in
long time.
5 years. 5 years is a
Yeah.
long time, and in 5 years you might be further down this road or further down that road, and it's all your choice.
And you can
So,
make a lot of money in 5 years. Are you crazy?
oh
Like, why
yeah,
would you not?
totally, totally.
I
So
love it.
anyway, yeah. So yeah, we're off and growing, and we probably had 30 some odd people in my office yesterday afternoon for a big meeting, and representing several teams and several big brokerages.
Yep.
And so yeah, there is a hunger and there is a thirst for something along these lines. And
Yep.
so when people get together and collaborate and share and just be able to kind of work together, I think good things are naturally just going to happen. And that's really where we're at right now. It's just the first inning of a very long game.
Yep.
And the reality is there's a lot of opportunity. And
For sure.
so and agents, again, I don't want an agent to come into my brokerage and they not leave better, right? Or I don't make
Right.
them better. Really, what I want to do is make them better and make it such an environment that they don't ever want to leave. And
Right.
that's part of why we had our brokers, or our agents, excuse me, within our brokerage, very, very few of them ever left. And a lot of that had to do with just the culture that we created, right? I helped make
Yep.
them better agents, and they felt supported, they felt loved, they felt encouraged. I had agents literally, when we announced we were leaving, they were like in tears, like, no, we don't want anything to change, and I'm like,
Yeah,
hey, look, it's going to change for the good. Like, I'm going
it
to help
is.
you, and this is going to be good. And there's not a negative here, and this is all positive. And
Yeah.
so anyway, needless to say, all of them came over, which has been great. But
It's only going to get better from here, you guys. Like 2025. Oh, y'all. And here's like last thing we're going to say about this. And then we got to jump off because I took us longer because this sinking
you're okay.
internet. Time to thrive, though. 25, y'all, is right around the corner. So if you're watching this and it's not January 23rd, then you need to come to our event on January 23rd, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's free because, again, just like Creston, we want to just pour back and give to you guys so that you walk away learning something to help you grow your business. So you get free tickets at timetothrive25.com. And then reach out to Creston too. Like, you guys have questions about why he did this and what would that look like and how you could do it too. Make sure and follow up with Creston for sure. Thank you for being here today, Creston,
Thanks,
in the
Trisha.
snow.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys have an
I'll
awesome
see
day.
you on Thursday.
Yes, for sure.
Good.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.